cream of the crop. Nobody does it better.
Baby, you are so money and you don't even know it.
I understood that reference.
Morning, Mr. Hammond.
Your mission, should you accept it,
Steal, destroy, shadow,
disappear, assemble the team,
and
here we go.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to FreeWheeling Fridays as part of the Madness Entertainment Group here. I am your host, Ryan of Van Code Channel, and this is the show where we introduce you to some of the best indie creators in the world, and we also find out more about them by taking your questions while discussing a few things in and around pop culture. So thank you for being with us. I am your host, Ryan of Van Code Channel, and our guest on this episode is indie writer Stuart Jaffe is in the building. Hello, Stuart. Welcome in, and how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome, good sir. We're very happy to have you here. We're also happy to have you here who may be watching or listening to this right now. So do not forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you're joining us live or what is known as a replay, thank you so much for doing that. And if you have any questions for our guest, Stuart Jaffe, as we go throughout the course of this program, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. We'll be taking those as they come in respectively. With that piece of business out of the way, Stuart, what would you say were some of your favorite books or writers growing up?
Well, there were always the big ones like Stephen King and that kind of thing, but I find odd, strange writers sometimes too. One of my favorites was Jack Ketchum, who's a horror writer, and he started around the time that Stephen King in the 80s, but he had a crazy story. He's no longer alive, but he writes horror novels that are like truly scary, because with a few exceptions, most of them, there's no like magical thing going on that you would see in like a Stephen King book or a Dean Koontz book. It's just people being horrible. And it's wild. Very visceral writing. Yeah, if you like horror, he wrote a couple of his books were made into some like indie movies, and he wrote a book called The Girl Next Door, which is by far the most frightening book I've ever read. Just terrifying. So yeah, that's definitely one I would say, Jack Ketchum. And I also loved all the like science fiction guys, Robert Heinlein and Isaac Asimov and all that kind of stuff too. So there's a start for you at least.
No, it's all good. So basically, it's fair to say you like horror. I mean, just going into that for argument's sake, whether it's Stephen King or some of the other writers you just mentioned or otherwise, what are some of your favorite TV series, past or present?
So I've had I'm old enough that I've had the joy of like watching like the X-Files as it came out, or Buffy as it came out, or even Supernatural as it came out. So I really enjoyed all that stuff growing up. I remember when I was in college and a whole bunch of people got together to watch the debut of Star Trek: The Next Generation, or this new crazy show called The Simpsons. I love all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you right now, so as much as I of that kind of stuff as I consumed and enjoyed, sometimes stuff would get by me. And there was a show called like it was obscure. The show The Sopranos, that I think that was in early 2000, like 2001 or something that came out. And I remember my mother calling me saying, "You've got to watch this show." But it was on HBO. I had a toddler and I was a struggling artist, so didn't have the money for HBO, so I never got to see it. And I'm watching it now, and it's besides being a great show. My mother had called me to watch it because she's like, "You got to watch this. You got to watch this." I'm like, "Why do you?" I mean, I love gangster stuff, but why you don't? Why are you watching? She goes, "Because it takes place in your hometown, where you grew up in New Jersey." I'm like, "Yeah, I grew up in this town called North Caldwell, which is where that show takes place." And I'm like, I said, "Why? Why would they do that there?" And she goes, "Because you grew up in a mob town." And I'm like, "What?" But I was a kid. I moved away when I was like 13, so I had no idea. And she's like, "Oh yeah, don't you remember so and so? His father was a judge. Well, he was known to be a mob judge. He was on the take and all this." And so it's really weird because they actually filmed the show a lot of it is filmed in that town. And I was just watching it the other day, and there's some cops following. I think they're following Tony or whatever, and they're going down this street, and my grade school just goes right by, and then they turn where I would walk to school. They turn down the road, and it's the scene cut. But if they'd gone just a little farther and made a left, that would have been my house. So it's really a bit of a mind trip to watch.
Wow. Okay. All right. So we got a bit of a mixture of gangsters on one side, and then we got the mixture of the truth is out there. You know, because
I loved all of that stuff. I've consumed all of it. You were asking. I loved horror. When I started writing. My original short stories when I was a kid were all kind of horror, but I love science fiction. And fantasy came a little bit later. I've always just loved all kinds of stories, and gangster stories and westerns and you name it. I can't think of a kind of story I wouldn't enjoy.
Oh, I see. So it's a mixture of everything. Baskin Robbins. You want 31 flavors? All these genres is where you want to be.
Exactly.
Which is completely fair. And you kind of mentioned or started to go into it a little bit here. So that segues into the next part of the question, which is, what would you say are some of your favorite movies, past or present?
Oh, that's a huge list. Everything from great movies like, the great movies that changed all of our lives, at least in my generation, like Star Wars and Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark and all that kind of stuff. But I equally love Taxi Driver or you mentioned the horror, so Apocalypse Now, Terminator 2. The list goes on and on and on. It'd be better for me to tell you like the schlocky movies I love, because they're great too. The horrible movies that are fun to watch, like stupid stuff like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, or I used to love, as a kid, I would watch Kung Fu Theater on Saturday mornings after the cartoons. So I kind of grew up on all the Shaw Brother action stuff and that, all that kind of badly dubbed Kung Fu stuff that was just making it into the States because of Bruce Lee. They suddenly were like, oh, there's a market for this. And I grew up watching all that stuff. And then when I was older, Jackie Chan. And like I said, I if it's storytelling, if it's art, if it's just for fun, I don't hold my nose at anything. And even I'm doing all the science fiction-y and action-y things. Love myself James Bond growing up, and then John Wick now and all that. But even a good romance, a good historical piece, I don't care if it's told well, if it grabs you and pulls you in. What's not to love?
Fair points. Favorite Bond film?
Favorite Bond film?
Yeah. 007.
Yeah. There's like I'm trying to think, because there's categories in my head, because like there are movies like Moonraker, which is not a good movie. Okay, it's not even a good Bond movie, it was made right after Star Wars, so as a kid it was a brilliant thing and I loved it, and I didn't even understand all the sex references that they and all that. And then movie making has gotten so much better. So the Daniel Craig stuff, like especially the first one he did,
Casino Royale
remake, that was really good. But then some of the early stuff is so top notch. Dr. No is still one of the great ones.
Yeah, the OG. Yeah. One that started it all, and then you got Goldfinger.
Yeah. Goldfinger might still be the best one, I think.
Yeah, I think was it Leonard Maltin went on record? I think he went on record by saying Goldfinger is the best Bond film ever made. Is Goldfinger?
I think there's a good argument for that, because it encompasses all the things that a Bond film needs and has, and it's doing it at its best. Like Roger Moore was the James Bond that I grew up with,
right?
And so there's certainly, he has his moments, but there's also, but it's more comical. It's more, it just doesn't quite have the same punch.
Tongue in cheek, maybe.
Yeah. There's a little wink and a nod at the silliness of Bond, of the Bond villains and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's doing it in the 70s, but into the 80s, where you end up getting the one-liner quips, when you off somebody and you make some kind of pun.
Yeah. Guy hangs onto his tie, throws him off the building. He says, "What a helpful chap."
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Exactly. Whereas Sean Connery just had the cool aspect of it down.
Yeah.
And I think Daniel Craig has done a really good job. All the other ones, I know some people love Timothy Dalton and Pierce Brosnan, and there's even people who like George Lazenby, and I don't say I don't like them. They're just not.
They're different. Yeah, they're very different. Yeah, which is true. Very, very, very true. Yeah, I grew up with the Pierce Brosnan movies. He's my generation's Bond. So GoldenEye is my favorite Bond film. Hands. That was the first one I ever saw in the theater. My mind was blown.
Right.
Coming out of that, I thought, if this is what action movies are, like, feed me more of this, please, because I really ate it up with a spoon. And I watch all the Daniel Craig movies, and some are better than others. It depends on who you ask, but. Yeah, Bond's got a big legacy, 60 plus years of film, 25 movies, 6 different actors. Yeah. So, to those of you who are watching or listening to this right now, take your pick. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to answer the question. Yeah. And let us know some of your favorite things about Bond in the comments if you want. You were about to say something, Stuart? I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's neat that the one thing about Daniel Craig, I really liked his Bond, but I've come to realize he could not have done that without Timothy Dalton's Bond.
Right.
Because Timothy Dalton was the first film
gritty one,
to really make it gritty. But he was kind of he was trying to make it that way, and that kind of set up the tee for Daniel Craig to hit off. And the movies themselves, like Quantum of Solace and all that, some of them are some of the older movies are really convoluted too, but he does a really good job. And then I really liked the final one. I can't think of the name.
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. I thought, it's not a perfect film, but when you're ending something, that's a hard thing to do. We can talk about it in writing. Ending a series of any kind satisfactorily is really, really difficult.
Yeah, I think that's a key word there.
And I think they managed to pull it off really well.
Yeah,
not that the series is over, but the character.
Yeah, just for that iteration of the character in Daniel Craig's era as Bond. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people didn't like it, but I think it worked really well because it was different. It was way different than anything else we've ever seen. So they pulled something. They pulled a rabbit out of the hat, in a way. And it worked for some. Maybe it didn't work for others, and that's okay. To each their own. You know what they say, right? Film is subjective. All pieces of art are subjective, right? So it's just one of those things. It's all good. Madness Entertainment Group is in the chat. He says hello to everybody. Hey, yo, what's up, Pops? Good to see you, man. He's here with us. Once again, this is Freewheeling Fridays as a part of the Madness Entertainment Group. Don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you're joining this live or on the replay, thank you for doing that. If you have any questions for Stuart, or maybe you want to bring up some stuff we just mentioned in terms of some of the movies or TV series that have been brought up, or James Bond. I mean, James Bond, a lot of things have happened with the James Bond cinematic universe recently, with Amazon taking creative control from Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. So, people are hesitant about, is Amazon going to mess it up? Are they going to add something new to the table? We don't know yet. We have no idea. There's been no news about who's the new Bond, what's the writer, what's the director, what's the storyline going to be. We have no idea. But Amazon and MGM Studios, we wish you the best of luck with what's going to happen with the, what do you call it, the James Bond franchise. We also do this here at Freewheeling Fridays as a part of the Madness Entertainment Group. We not only love having indie creators here on this show and the other shows that are part of this channel and wonderful group of people. We also like to give shout outs to incredible indie writers and people who are putting together projects, and they're very passionate about what they do. So before I chime in with a wonderful next round of 20 questions, we have this for you. Take a look. There you go. So check out ckoepp.com. Check out some of the wonderful things that Cindy Kep is doing over there. She's got a lot of things going on. I mean, my goodness, books, comics, crochet dragons. Sorry, that's my poor attempt at a Dragon Lord type of impression. Sorry, but check her out. She's a good person, good friend of the network, good friend of the show. So Cindy, we miss you. And one of these days, Cindy, we're going to have you back here on whether it's And I Quote or FreeWheeling Fridays. We got to get you on here. We got to talk shop about some things. With that being said, you mentioned some of your favorite TV series, some of your favorite movies. Good titles there, no question. So, what made you decide to become a writer?
Well, I mean, in hindsight, it was a little bit always there. I have a memory of sitting in front of a typewriter, which for those of you who don't know, it's like a computer without a screen. It's just a keyboard and the letters go on paper. This is like, I don't know, 7, 8, and I'm like, I'm going to write a novel. And it took me all night to write one page, which was the entire story because it was more of an outline, but I didn't know that. And it was some crazy science fiction thing with clones, and I don't even know if it made sense, but I remember doing it. And but then really what ended up happening is in high school I discovered theater, and I went to college to get a degree in directing theater, and during that time period I started writing plays because then I could direct them. And then I was basically trying to circumvent the program where they kind of don't let you direct at first, but there are kind of behind there are unofficial stage productions you could put on yourself, and so I wrote them, and I was doing that for a long time, and I really enjoyed that, and then that led me to writing short stories again, and from there it just kind of that by then the bug had hit and I was writing. And then finally, right out of college, a friend of mine and I, we moved in together and started a theater company. This was up in Pennsylvania. And while we were doing that, I just had the idea of like, I knew I could write a short story. I wanted to figure out if I could write a novel. I just wanted to write a novel, but it just seemed like such an impossible mountain to climb. So what I realized, I knew I could write a page in a day. That's only like a page is like 250 to 300 words. So I figured if I could just do that every day for a year, at the end of a year, I'd have written 365 pages, and with any luck, it would make some kind of sense and be a novel. And so I did that, and it sucked. I mean, it was a crappy novel, but I finished it. And so once you've gone over that mountain, you're like, oh, it wasn't so impossible. And more importantly, you've done it once, and now you're like, I knew it was no good, but I know there's this one part here that was good, or this part completely failed, but I think I know why it failed. So now my brain was like, I want to write another one and fix that and do it right. And then you do that, and then you're like, oh, okay, that one I got it right now, but now this is all screwy and this is all screwy, and you keep doing it over and over and over, and eventually you get to the point where you've written a book that actually is good, hopefully, and maybe publishable, and it just kind of evolved from there. And I mean, there were conscious decisions made. I can remember my wife and I having a very serious talk about whether I was going to really try to go do this full time and take the risk, because if it didn't pan out, I don't have if I have to go get a job tomorrow, my resume has a 20, 30 year gap where I'm just a writer. So that was a risky decision, but we decided we'd go for it, and thankfully it's paid off.
Oh, there you go. Hard work does pay off, ladies and gentlemen. Just keep on pushing, as one might say. What would you say are some of the rewards about being a writer?
I get to do what I get to do my own schedule. I mean, I have the rewards of anybody who's a self-employed and not working in some kind of thing that has specific hours. So I'm doing this live with you today. So earlier today, I was like, you know what? I'm not working. I'm not going to work this afternoon because I got to work tonight and that kind of thing. So the flexibility is wonderful. If my wife comes in and says, hey, I want to go to the movies, I'm like, okay, we can go to the movies. The downside, of course, is that the work still has to get done. And that means that that I'm always, in some respect, always working. I mean, I can't escape this thing in here. So 7 days a week, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, my brain is working. I go to sleep thinking about stories. I wake up thinking about them. I'm writing throughout the day. So that's both a good and a bad thing. But really, if you can accept the truly hard parts about being a self-employed writer, and I think most people, I often tell people not to do it. Like a lot of people are like, oh, that's their dream. They want to quit the job and be a writer. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of reality that makes it very difficult. But if you can accept those things, and we can talk about those if you want, but if you can accept those things, then I get paid to just make stuff up in my head and put it out there, and people enjoy it, and they love my characters and they want more. And I mean, that's wonderful. Last weekend I was at Coastal Magic, which is a convention down in Daytona Beach. It's a readers convention, and those people are just the most fanatically wonderful about reading. And most of them did not know me. That a few of them had read my stuff, and they just think you're like the greatest celebrity in the world to them. They're so excited to meet you and know the person who made the characters that they love, and that kind of stuff is just awesome.
For sure. I can totally see where you're coming from with that. Opposite side of the fence, though, what are the challenges about being a writer?
Well, so being a full-time writer is, on the one hand, well, there's a bunch of things. First, you have to have a tremendous amount of self-discipline. Nobody's going to make me write. There's nobody. It's a business of one, unless you happen to become huge, where you suddenly need whole staff. But even they can't make you write. So I have nobody. The only people kind of whipping me saying get to work are the fans who are, they write and they're like, oh, I loved it. When's the next one coming? And then, oh yeah, I got to write the next one. So no, you definitely need self-discipline. And the big thing, the thing I always tell people who want to do this is that you have to be really comfortable with uncertainty. I have no idea how much money I'm going to make next month, tomorrow. I have no idea. Next year. And so some years have been fantastic and I make plenty of money, and some years I'm just breaking even. And you have to be able to manage your money so that it can keep you going through the lean times, which the entire industry is in lean times right now. We've really publishing has been suffering pretty much since COVID. And last year in particular, I think it was last year, they were down across the board like 40%. So not just indie authors, but all the major publishers, everybody's down. So it's tough. It's real hard to make a living right now in publishing. And you just have to be prepared to deal with those times and know how to invest your money and have it set aside so that you can get through that. And I've met a lot of people who just either can't do that, they either don't understand how to, they don't have the discipline to do it, or as a result of those things end up having to go back into the 9-to-5 workforce because they got to make ends meet. So yeah, you have to be real careful about that. And then if you're fortunate enough, like myself, to have done it as long as I have, you're in a position now where there's really no option. I mean, I'm 53 years old. I have to start over at ground zero. I mean, it would be really, really hard if suddenly publishing and writing is no longer viable, period. But, I'm prepared for that, but I think a lot of people wouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, took the advice of our Uncle Scar back from '94. Be prepared, as they taught us in the Disney animated film Lion King. If anyone remembers what I'm talking about, if you get it, if you get the reference, more power to you. Once again, this is Freewheeling Fridays. Here with the guest of honor, Stuart Jaffe here on this episode. Do not forget to like and share this with everybody you know. If you're joining us live on the replay, thank you for doing that so much. And if you have any questions for Stuart, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. More than happy to take those as they come in. And you mentioned a few pieces, but if you wish to add anything to this, you're more than welcome to. What other pieces of advice would you give to aspiring writers out there?
Oh my goodness, there's so much. Well, so one of the things I always tell them is that there are no rules to any of this, but the only true guidelines to becoming good at writing. There's no rule. There's no way to guarantee success. Because it's an art form, and in all art forms, there's never been a formula guaranteed to become successful. If there was, we'd all do it. And it's not just writing. In movies, in television, music, there is no formula. Sometimes there can be a formula that'll last a little bit, like Pixar came along and they did the Toy Story formula for like a decade and it worked, or Marvel did it for their thing for a decade, but it eventually doesn't work anymore. So there's no guarantee in that respect. But what I can guarantee you is that if you want to become a good writer, there's what are called the 6 rules of writing, which are read, write, write. It's a matter of just exposing yourself to all kinds of writing, so you can, and thinking about how authors are doing what they're doing, and then trying it, writing and failing, trying to get a little better each time, pick out something you can learn from. I mean, there's plenty of books on writing, and you can go to conventions and hear me talk about writing, and we can tell you all kinds of things, but ultimately you have to figure out what works for you and develop your own voice, and that's just by doing it. So that's the best thing. The only other big piece of advice, and it's the advice most beginner writers don't want to hear at all, which is what you really should do is buy a book on grammar. It's boring as hell, unless you're like an English major and you love that stuff. But those are the tools you're working with. So if you don't understand the difference between a prepositional phrase and a split infinitive or whatever, then you're tying one hand behind your back, because it's like if you're going to play music, you should learn at least the basics of music theory. It'll help you because it'll help you know what notes to go to and what ones to avoid, and that's true of language. When we write, the words, the sentence rhythms and are really important in how it all flows. And if you understand how punctuation works, those are tools that you can use. And if you know what the rules are, then you'll know how to break them effectively instead of just breaking them willy-nilly because you don't know what you're doing. And readers will notice that. They probably won't consciously notice it, but there's that intangible thing that when they read a book and they instantly know, oh, this person knows what they're doing, and I like, their characters are really connecting with me. It's because that writer actually knows how to use words and grammar and punctuation at the very basic, on top of all the other more complicated or higher level type writing concepts. So yeah, just ground yourself in the basics. It may not be as fun, but although it weirdly can be, once you grasp it and start realizing how you can play with those things effectively, and not just spitting it out there, but like suddenly going, oh, if I use an M dash here instead of a comma, it's going to really nail that line, and the reader's going to be like, oh, and it really can be that simple. So yeah, I think there's some advice at least.
Yeah, so in other words, the devil is in the details, Smithers. Yeah, devil's in the details. And by the way, of all the years I've been doing this as a podcaster, you're the first person who has said that one of the things you should do as aspirant is buy a grammar book. It's going to be boring as heck, but if you read it, it'll help you with your writing and formatting too. So that's a first, fans. I got to tell you, this, they say, right? First time for everything in life, folks. But good pieces of advice, though, Stuart. Not going to argue that point. Not going to argue that. Good stuff. Buy a grammar book. That's a new one on me, guys. I'm going to have to, that's going to be sticking out in the back of my mind for a good while. And another thing that's going to stick out in the back of my mind is the wonderful people we've been able to meet with, talk with, indie creators out there that got all kinds of wonderful things going on, such as this. Gee whiz. A lot of people are into horror these days, Stuart included. That's probably up your alley.
That I was disappointed that I was like, oh, I'll go get that book, but it's not out yet. I have to wait till May, apparently.
Yep, it's coming soon, though, so stay tuned. It's coming soon. But yeah, if you're into horror, Slaughterville, okay. That's going to be one for nightmares. That's an image that's going to keep me up tonight. Thanks, guys. Well, with that being said,
are you squeamish about that kind of stuff, or are you just joking?
I respect the genre of horror, I really do, but I'm not the biggest fan of it because it does. There are certain things about that do indeed terrify me, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I want to see that movie. I don't know if I want to read that book. I'm sorry. It may not be my cup of tea, but for you, maybe watching or listening to this right now, it may be your cup of tea, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just not the biggest fan of the horror genre as a whole, but I do respect it, and there are some films that I've seen in my life where I do enjoy psychological thrillers or, things that go bump in the night. For a perfect example, a movie that came out in the early 2000s with Jennifer Carpenter, Tom Wilkinson, rest in peace, good sir, and Laura Linney, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I think that's a great movie. It's a great movie. It's a legal thriller, but it's also slightly based on a true story about a girl who was possessed. Right. And the whole possession thing and the whole exorcism thing, that fascinates me. So there you go. There's an element of...
Have you seen the ultimate one, The Exorcist?
I have seen the OG, the one that set the bar for everybody. Yes, I've seen it. I thought it was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't love it. Yeah, I didn't love it, to be honest with you. I've seen The Exorcist. I also saw Rosemary's Baby. That didn't do anything for me either. I was bored by that one. I didn't like it very much.
So yeah, Rosemary's Baby is a weird little film.
It is.
And it's of its time. It's a very it's told in a very 1970s decade way.
Right. Those two
The
classic.
Exorcist, to me, that's one of the most frightening movies. That is probably the scariest movie I think that's out there.
It's the benchmark.
It really is. And I'll tell you what made. I mean, as a movie, I think it's just a scary movie anyway.
Sure.
But the thing that when I realized it, I'm like, oh, that movie's scarier than I realized, was that if you ever watch it, or the next time you ever were to watch it, there's music. There's this little piano thing, and it plays like when he's running down the street or something. But during all the terrifying, horrible things with Reagan, there's no music. There's no jump scare cues that we use that are normally there to heighten your tension. It's just nutty, crazy. It's this thing happens, and when you're done, you're like, holy, did I just see that? Did that really just happen? And there's nothing to guide you there. And in fact, the only sounds cue that you have is most of the scenes, the really horrible scenes, start with the mother or somebody talking downstairs, and you just start hearing the bang, 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 bang from upstairs, and they have to go upstairs, and you don't know what's going to be behind what craziness is going to be going on behind that door. But yeah, there's no music in all of that. And the exorcism itself, there's none. And when I realized that, I'm like, oh man, that means that stuff is just scary on its own.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is. I mean, it didn't really do much for me personally, but then again, I'm a different, breed. I'm a different generation. So that wasn't alive when the film came out originally. So I'm a bit younger.
Well, I was, but there was no way I was going to be allowed to see it.
Okay, well, there's another point there, but films that I have seen that were made in the '70s that I mean, these may not. Well, The Exorcist of Emily Rose came out in the 2000s, so that's different. But a film that came out in I think it was the '70s, if I'm not mistaken, right? Jaws. I mean, it's not really a horror movie, but it is a bit of a scary film, and it is a thriller to a certain. It's a thrill. Yeah, it's a thriller to a certain degree.
It's a slasher film, but the slasher is the shark.
Is the shark? Yeah, that's a good movie, and it turns 50 this year, believe it or not. Jaws turns 50. There's a fun fact for those of you watching or listening to us at home. If we want to make you feel very young, see what I did there? I reversed the terminology a little bit. But yeah, I've seen Jaws. That was good. Yeah, I like that movie. I do. I've seen Nightmare on Elm Street. That's one of the best horror films I've ever seen. Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven, rest in peace, good sir. Great filmmaker. A lot of great stuff he did with the what do you call it? Nightmare on Elm Street franchise and Scream. He reinvented the genre again with Scream in '96. That film's good. It's a commentary on horror films and horror tropes, and it's very meta. Yeah. So that works, right?
He also did The Thing, the remake of The Thing, which is another one that's like one of the top benchmarks of horror.
John Carpenter's The Thing is fantastic.
Yeah.
That
the
one's
original
good.
Thing is actually good too, but for completely different. Obviously, not for special effects. It's like 1950.
Yeah, it was way back when.
Yeah, but it's somewhere in the 50s. But it's for its time, it's surprisingly a really cool story.
That one I will agree with you. And to pay even a more bit of a tribute to old school Hollywood and filmmaking, I got to give a shout out to Creature from the Black Lagoon. That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Universal monster movies. Let's not forget about those, folks. That's a great one. The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. I think is a great film through and through. The Phantom of the Opera with Claude Rains. His iteration of that story was great. And The Invisible Man, Claude Rains again. So it's great movies. Great, classic monster / horror movies. And obviously the makeup artist, Jack Pierce, one of the biggest names in film history. Well done, Jack Pierce. Well done, Jack Pierce. So there are elements of horror that I do enjoy and I can get with, but I'm just not the biggest fan of the genre. That's just my personal
I like how you say you're not the biggest fan, and you're just quoting off all these like old films.
I know,
studying it all.
Well, I've been a film buff since I mean, I've been watching movies since I was 3, and I've been a really big film buff since I was like in my teens. So I love going back and watching movies that were made way back when to learn the history of filmmaking in Hollywood and how things were different back then, how things have evolved or changed over the years. Like someone asked me this some time ago. They said, "What is one of your favorite movies?" And I said, "One of my favorite movies is Casablanca." I think it's a great film. That's old school Hollywood right there. It's pure old school Hollywood, and it's the golden age with Bogey and Ingrid Bergman, Paul Henreid, and once again, Claude Rains pops up in that movie. Sidney Greenstreet, Peter Lorre. It's a great film. I actually showed the trailer today to my students. I teach a film analysis. I'm a facilitator for a program, but it's like a film analysis course at my university here in town. And I showed them the trailer for Casablanca. It was the 4K trailer, because they re-released it on 4K not too long ago. But it doesn't give away the whole movie because all the trailers these days give away the whole movie. This one doesn't, because I wanted to show them what the 3-act structure of a story is. And I also wanted to show them examples of trailers that give away the first act and maybe the first 2 acts, but it doesn't give away the entirety of the plot. But it whets your appetite just enough to say, I want to go out and see this movie, or I want to sit down and watch it. I want to stream this movie later tonight. And as soon as the Casablanca trailer was done, was completed, I looked at my students and I said, "What's your reaction to this? What did you think of this trailer?" And one of my students said, "This is a great trailer. Now I want to see this. Like, I really want to see this." I'm like, see, that's the beauty of filmmaking and trailers and marketing campaigns for certain films, is that they don't give away the entirety of the plot. So, and Casablanca's been around for 80 some odd years. So it's amazing that a 4K trailer for the re-release of a film can still get people in the seats. So hopefully she's watching it tonight, or maybe my student's going to be watching it over the weekend. I don't know, but Casablanca's wetting their film filmography or film history appetite. But before I, go off too far off the reservation, I want to focus on our guest of honor, the New York Times bestselling writer Stuart Jaffe here for just a minute, maybe a few more minutes, I should say, more than just a minute. Sorry, but give you an idea
Did
of.
you just say New York Times bestselling? Because
I know I'm
I
giving
am
you.
not.
I no, it's okay. I'm just giving you some kudos here and trying to boost your ego. Uh,
Okay.
uh, I'm just giving you. I'm giving you some credit here. I'm being your hype person, if you want to call it that. But to give the person who's watching or listening to this an idea of who you are as a writer, I got some examples here that we'd like to share with you. So let's go over this for a little bit. This one here, Southern Kin, Max Porter Mystery. I see tornadoes. I see a creepy looking hand. I see a man with glowy eyes and a pistol in his hand. What exactly is Southern Kin? How did this come about?
So that's the 18th book in the Max Porter Paranormal Mysteries series. And actually, the 19th comes out on Tuesday, so just around the corner. And the premise of the whole series is it's about a husband and wife who move from the north. They move down to the south to North Carolina and to Winston-Salem, and he discovers his office is haunted by the ghost of a 1940s detective. So he does what anyone in that situation would do. He starts a detective agency with a ghost, because what else can you do? And I take real history of the area. I started writing it when I lived in Winston-Salem, and then I now live near a town over called Thomasville. But I take real history of the whole parts of North Carolina, usually odd, strange history that I find out about, and I mix it with witches, ghosts, curses, and magic. So that's the premise of the whole thing.
Wow.
So this, for example, this is the 18th book, and one of the bits of history that comes out was that of course, I wrote this book like almost a long time, not that long ago, but I'm trying to remember all the details. I want to say it was in the late 1800s. I forget the exact year, but there was this outbreak of tornadoes. They called it the Enigma tornado outbreak. There was something like some ridiculous number, like 50 some tornadoes that hit like 12 different states, through the south all the way up through the middle of the country, all the same night. It was just this crazy, crazy thing. And at the time, it's not like they had weather satellites or anything. So it came out of nowhere. And there was a lot of damage and death. And they called it the Enigma outbreak because they had no idea what caused it or even how many tornadoes the exact count was. And there were 4 or 5, I think, that came through here in North Carolina. And one of them went nearby a town that I wanted to use for that book. So what I ended up doing is I created a magical tornado on top of all the other ones. I had a witch casting a spell. So there's the actual tornado outbreak. And then there's the one she's using kind of like a hitman to go do a bad thing. And that's what happened in the past. And so the books all take place in the present, and Max and his team get involved in a case that is connected to that old tornado outbreak. So that's kind of how it works.
Wow, who needs the movie Twisters? That pseudo weirdo legacy sequel to Twister when you got this one. Just read the Max Porter series, and you mentioned the new one's about to come out here pretty soon.
Yeah,
Southern Lies. So, what's the story behind this one?
So this one is the story is it's about a textile the wife of a textile mogul from the past, and she hires the Porter agency because her son, who is wheelchair bound and is being afflicted by a family curse, and she wants them to lift the curse. And in doing so, and as they get involved in the case, they find out more and more about what's really going on. And of course, as the title of the book implies, there's not a lot of truthfulness being thrown their way. And historically, it gets up into there are 2 major industries historically in North Carolina: tobacco, R.J. Reynolds, and all that, and textiles, Hanes underwear and all that. Hanes the Haynes family and the Reynolds family are the two biggest families here in North Carolina, and have been for a long, long time. And of course, in my series, in the beginning of the series, not in this book, but in the very beginning of the series, I created a fictitious third big family because that family, the Hull family, deals with all the magic and the witches and all that. But the textile industry was especially late 1800s into the early and mid 1900s was brutal, and there were strikes, and there was just horrible working conditions, and the one of the more this book mentions a bunch of them, but in one in particular that they gets quite in depth into is the Luray mill strike of which was in the 1929, part of the lead up to the Great Depression, and it was just a big strike, but it ended up getting national and eventually international attention. There were murders involved that happened. There was all kinds of legal shenanigans going on, and governors from our own state as well as other states getting involved. It was a big mess, and that kind of stuff is ripe for me to throw witches, magic, and ghosts involved, get them all in. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm really excited to get this book out. My early ARC readers have been writing back, and some of them have been with me from the beginning, and they're like, "This is the best Max Porter yet," and I'm like, that warms my heart, because that's like one of the hardest things. Every time after writing 18 of them, to have to write a 19th and still deliver, I'd be happy if they're like, it's just as good as any other Max Porter. But when they're like, this one's better than anything we've read recently, or the best one yet, I'm like, wow. I'm glad it's still resonating. So very excited about it.
Oh, well, congratulations on that for sure, man. Goodness gracious, man. 18 going on 19 books. I mean, if you keep writing this, in 2 more books, Max Porter is going to be old enough to drink. He'll be 21 at that point. 21 books, 21 stories. He'll be 21. So, kudos. Yeah. Good stuff. You mentioned something we were talking backstage earlier. He's got glowing eyes. What's the deal with his glowing eyes? How does that come into play?
So one of the things you learn as an indie publisher is what's important about a cover and what isn't. Too often authors are all like, it's got to be exactly like what's in the book, and it doesn't. All the cover needs to do is say, this is the genre, so that if you're looking at a bunch of covers, your eyes are like, oh, I can look at that and know roughly what the genre is, and of course be striking enough to pull you to pick up the book and look at it and read the back and want to read the book or click on it or whatever. So when we started on the first book, and if you take the image down, you can see behind me, this is the cover of the first book. Get out of the way even more, just that. So
yeah, nice.
When I was working with the artist who did this cover, his name was Duncan Long, and we batted around ideas. We knew we wanted to have this Sam Spade 1940s detective on the cover, and that would get across mystery right away, and the kind of a noirish feel right away. And we were going around, how are we going to get the paranormal in there? And I remember saying to him, and him agreeing, we're like, the one thing we don't want to do is glowing eyes, because it's so cliche, and we're just not going to do that. And so we're trying this went around back and forth through email for a week or two, just daily coming up with ideas and, a couple sketches, and it's just not working. And one day I get this email from him with this cover attached, and he said, I was so frustrated. I just did the glowing eyes just to see what it would look like, to see if it might inspire something else. And he said, I don't know what you think, but I think it kind of looks good. And I looked at it, and I remember going, yeah, it does. It's cliche, but man, it instantly explains the cover or the concept in just right away. And so, once that's what we established in the first book for the cover, I've kind of stuck with it, because that detective, the ghost detective with the glowing eyes, is on every cover in the series. So it wasn't what we intended to have, but it does the job just great, and I can't argue with it.
Oh, there you go. And I notice your character likes to wear trench coats and carry pistols. Any inspiration from the classic pulp characters like the Phantom
Absolutely.
or the Shadow
That's
there?
Sam Spade, from the Maltese Falcon, and
Oh, yeah.
that's the Humphrey Bogart character. I mean, it's just a classic noir look, and absolutely intended 100%. He wears a fedora, and I mean, you take one look at that image and what you're going to get from that character, at least as a baseline to start from.
Good stuff, man. I'm digging it. You know what else I'm digging? The person who's watching or listening to this episode of Freewheeling Fridays with Stuart Jaffe, our guest of honor. I hope you're digging it, because we're live. And if you're joining us live on the replay, thank you for doing that. If you have any questions for Stuart, let us know in the comments or the chat. And do not forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. Max Porter Paranormal Mysteries there. It's a mystery. One thing that's not a mystery is the great indie creators who are out there, busting their chops, putting out all these great comics or books or stories or Kickstarters and all that kind of jazz, such as this fine indie creator. Once again, things that go bump in the night. They just keep on bumping.
It's a theme, doesn't it?
Yeah, seems to be the theme of these wonderful people out there with all these indie creations and things going on and all that kind of jazz, as one might say. Another example I'd like to share with you, this is a little bit different, but still somewhat similar. The Paranormal Society collection with a young lady who's ready to go into battle, or maybe she's ready to lay the smackdown on someone's candy ass. So I'm just curious, what exactly is this and how did this all come about?
So the Parallel Society is a completed 7-book series, and it's important to say it's completed. You're not going to be George R. R. Martin. It's done. It's contemporary fantasy. It's about a gal who works in her family bookstore, and she learns that her grandma and grandma's 2 elderly friends have been saving the universe for decades and decades. Hard to keep it up with a bad back and arthritis. So they want her to take over fighting all the monsters that fall through rifts into our universe. And it's about her journey from saying, no way in hell am I doing that, to I'm the badass saving the universe. And the Parallel Society collection, that's I collected the first 3 books into one book, that's the cover for. And then there's volume 2, which is the remaining 4 books. So you can get the whole thing in 2 volumes.
Oh wow, that's cool. That's a really interesting storyline. Working at a bookstore, but then she turns out to be, taking part in the a little bit of the supernatural, saving people, hunting things, family business.
It's a lot of fun. I've been doing this a long time, so I have a lot of different types of fantasy and science fiction out there. The Max Porter is like the biggest thing I have in my best-selling series, but the Parallel Society is probably my second best-selling for now, and I've been writing a science fiction series. I like everything I write is always in that, the umbrella of genre. But I love it all. And so I bounce around a lot, keeps me excited about what I'm doing. And that way, hopefully keep the readers excited. Because if I'm bored, how can I expect you to be excited?
That's fair. That's fair. Creativity never sleeps, ladies and gentlemen. Let's keep it that way. Acres of Movies says hello and thanks for playing our. I believe she's thanking us for playing that promo we just saw. Heart Stacy. So Stacy, thanks for joining us. And she also asked a question: have either of you read Rossum's Universal Robots? Never heard of that one. Does that ring any bells?
I haven't even heard of it.
I can't say I have.
One of I think that the viability of indie books is wonderful and all the writing that's out there. But just like all the other, like what streaming has done to movies and television and MP3s and streaming music has done to music, it's happened in writing too, which is there's so much that's out there now. It's hard. It's really hard for everybody to connect to all find one thing. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was like everybody watched Seinfeld. And even if you weren't one who was watching it, you knew of it and you probably knew half the jokes because people were talking about it. It's so hard to have something that the whole country or the world is paying attention to. I think it's one reason why actually the last big thing I can really think of is Harry Potter. It's so rare for that to happen now. So there's lots of great stuff out there that I just, you just can't find. And what Acres of Movies is doing by mentioning this is the key thing. This is something a lot of writers now are trying to get y'all readers to understand, is that you telling other readers about the books you like this one, that's the biggest thing you can do to help get the stuff you like to be continually made. Because I can't keep doing this unless you're out there buying the books. So I always tell my readers, you gotta, I put out ads, I do shows, but it's still word of mouth has always been, that's the number one way to get people to know about books. So
very true.
Well, I'll check. I've not read Universal Robots, but I will certainly look it up.
Yeah, Acres of Movies goes on to say it is a play from the 1920s, actually. It was the first usage of the word robot, and it was about robots being created from human flesh that rebel and take over the cities. The director of The Crow and Dark City, Alex Proyas, is making a movie about that right now.
So now that you say that, I have heard of this. I've not read it, but I didn't know that was the name of it, but I do know about that 1920s play that used the word robot. And I didn't know that that director was doing those, but I love The Crow and Dark City, so yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, those are good movies too. I did, well, it was I heard them talked about over years, but I didn't see both The Crow and Dark City until a couple years ago for the very first time. And I love both of them for different reasons. I think The Crow is a solid revenge movie, but it's also based off a best-selling graphic novel of the same name. And oh gosh, why am I blanking on his name? James O'Barr, the creator of The Crow. I met him at a Comic-Con. He signed my Crow Blu-ray. That was nice of him. Got a selfie together too. That was cool. And then Dark City, man, what a unique film that is. That's a very unique film. And there's two different cuts too. When you buy the DVD or the Blu-ray, they give you the theatrical cut and the director's cut. So check them out. It's good stuff. Both The Crow and
I never saw the director's cut. My wife and I saw them in the theaters when they came out. So we were just we used to back in the day.
Back in the day,
I know this is going to be shocking for a lot of y'all, but movies used to be cheap entertainment. We literally that was like the only thing we could afford to go do, because you could go see a movie for like $5, go in a matinee, a couple bucks for each, and a little bit of popcorn for $10. We could easily see a movie. So we would see everything we could. And now it's like, what, 2 people to go see a movie is going to cost you $50-$60. It's crazy. But back then, yeah. So there's, if it was, if it came out in the 90s or even into the early 2000s, I probably saw it in the theater.
Nice, good picks, man. Good, for sure. Let's see here. Acres of Movies goes on to say, like the library or bookstore employee learning about these things, then becoming a leader as a woman. That sounds like a nice story I can relate to. With certain things that have been mentioned. All right, well, that's. Oh no, you're talking about the paranormal case files. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that we just brought up earlier. Sorry, I got a little confused there. But yes, you're talking about the series of stories that Stuart Jaffe has written. Yeah, it's. I think that's a very cool storyline. Someone who's a bookstore employee and then they become a leader. They go off on their own adventures, kind of like a pass into the torch, from their family members onto her. And okay, I like this. So you think you're just people think you're just a bookworm, but no, she turns out to be a hero of her own. So I respect that. May have to pick up the paranormal case files. That sounds it. Both of these series sound interesting to me, especially the paranormal case. Am I saying this right? Yeah, the Paranormal Society collection. I'm sorry. But yeah, that sounds really intriguing. Between that and Max Porter, so definitely gonna have to check those out. But thanks for sharing your thoughts with us there. What is it? Acres of Movies. Yeah, good to have you here. And for those of you who are just tuning in, this is Freewheeling Fridays, part of the Madness Entertainment Group. Don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. If you're joining us live or what is known as a replay, thank you for doing that. If you have any questions for Stuart, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. You want to talk about some of these other movies or genres that maybe fall or cross over with each other, even though our friend always told us 40 years ago, don't cross the streams. Why? It could be bad. I'm a little fuzzy on the whole good, bad thing. What do you mean bad? Try to imagine every molecule in your body and everything in life exploding at the speed of light. Total platonic reversal. Okay, that's bad. All right, good safety tip. Thanks, Egon. Sorry, I've seen that movie one too many times.
No, but that was really well done. Because I know all those lines too. I don't know if I could recite them, but as you were saying them, I knew what was coming. So I was like, is he going to get it all? And
I think I did. I think I did pretty good. Let's see. Let's see here. Acres of Movies goes on to say, yes, these are delightful programs that you're giving us tonight. Thanks. You're welcome. Did you too like the movie known as Crawl? Okay, so here's the thing. I've heard of it. I've seen the like a piece of marketing materials for it, but I've never seen the actual film.
Oh man!
But I do know I need to sit down and watch it. Isn't that right? I do need to sit down and watch it, right, Stuart? Oh, Stuart, I think you froze. Did you freeze? Did he freeze? Does anyone else have it? Stuart, I think you froze, my man. I think we may... Stuart, I think you froze. I think you need to perhaps jump out of the studio and then jump back in. I think you may or may not be having some technical difficulties there. But, yeah, he's going to have to jump out and jump back in. But, no, I have not seen Crawl. I've heard things about it. I don't know if they're good or bad, but I've heard about it. I've just never seen it. So don't worry, Acres of Movies. It's on my list. It's on my list. Something I definitely want to see or watch, I should say. So there's that. Well, as we are waiting Stuart Jaffe to come back, he may be having some technical difficulties there. Do want to take this opportunity to thank you all for tuning in and watching us, or if you're listening to us in the background or that kind of thing. Do want to thank you for doing that. Hey, you're back. There he is.
Yeah, I live out in the country.
Okay.
Fiber optic cables, but sometimes this happens.
No, that's okay. But she was asking, have we seen the movie Crow? Now, my question to you was, should I actually sit down and watch this hour 45-minute movie known as Crawl?
No. I mean, it holds a place in my heart. It has a very cool impractical weapon. It's not a great film, but it's like I know you like film history, so it has its place, but no, it's not a great film.
Okay,
it's imagination, but it's kind of like, should you watch Conan the Destroyer? Conan the Destroyer is not a great film, but at the same time, you get to see like Grace Jones being just wackadoodle nuts, or Wilt Chamberlain, a basketball player, playing a barbarian. It's just some of the crazy crap from the 80s. It's very evident that cocaine was big in the 80s, and a lot of people were making decisions about movies not completely in their brain.
Yeah, it was snowing outside that day. With that, one might say that. Acres of Movies goes on to say, yes, I'd recommend you watch Crawl for the score alone. It's an awesome movie, and it really grows on you. According to them, it does. So, okay. Maybe I'll have to add it to the list. It says the score is as good as a Star Wars movie.
Wow. I don't remember the music, but I have not seen the movie since I was a kid. So, I could see. I mean, like I said, if I could imagine, there are aspects of it that I remember very clearly. But you have to also understand, like back in the 70s and into the 80s, we didn't have CGI, so special effects were really expensive and difficult to do. So those of us who love science fiction and fantasy kind of stuff, we had to take whatever we could get. And so even if there are elements of there, like I said, there are elements of Crawl that are cool. The way magic is done is kind of interesting. The weapons are cool. The acting is the main actor is pretty good, if I seem to recall. But there are just weird decisions are made sometimes in these movies that would probably not be made now, because we have a lot more fantasy and science fiction being made because it's a lot cheaper to make now. So you just kind of get these really weird movies that some of them are weirdly wonderful and some are not. Crawl is somewhere in the middle of all that.
I finally got a chance to see a movie that no one likes, but I ended up liking it. Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren. I enjoyed that movie. I enjoyed it for what it was. I really did. It's cheesy, over the top, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but
I want to see. I would love to see. Are you even familiar? Do you know what Thundar the Barbarian is? Do you know that?
I've heard of the property or the character. I've heard of it. I've just never read any of it or seen any of it.
It's not a book. It was just a cartoon.
It was a cartoon. I'm sorry. Yeah,
a Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
I've heard of it though.
Yeah. And it was in that. It was a response. There was Conan the Barbarian was big.
Right. Yeah.
Masters of the Universe came a little bit later, but it was in that same vein. And I just recently, I can't remember who wrote it. Somebody, like, there were some like serious heavy hitter science fiction writers who were behind that. And I just, now that's something also very schlocky, but I loved it, and I would love to see somebody make a movie of that. That'd be awesome.
Okay, fair enough. Boy, these are some interesting questions from Acres of Movies. They go on to say, if you were hired to write what is known as a Where's Waldo movie, how exactly would you do that? And then they go on to add something to that, which is, would you depict the scenes and show him as a traveler, that he and Willa are to be married, and then he finds the books that make him time travel, and then the scrolls, etc., tap into wanderlust of each viewer? Boy, this is new.
A Where's Waldo movie? I don't know.
How would you write it? I mean, I don't know.
It'd be. I mean, it's almost like the storyline itself. I mean, Acres of Movies has a whole entire storyline, and that's as good as any. The whole thing is Where's Waldo is not a story. It's here's an image and it's a game. So how do you get that across? I mean, the cool thing about, like, you want to do it like on IMAX, so it would just be his massive screen of just 100,000 people, get all these extras, and try and get and hold that long enough for people to try and find Waldo.
Gee willikers. I mean, that's one way to go about it. They go on to say, also depict Waldo Land and the Waldoverse. How would you want that to go? And it'd be exciting when the scenes are shown, and then the camera pans around, and the audience finds Waldo in chaotic set pieces. Listen, Acres of Movies, you got a lot of creativity going through your mind right now. So appreciate the thoughts and the creativity, because creativity never sleeps. Clearly, it doesn't with you. And by the way, Acres of Movies, how many acres do you actually own that are filled with movies and physical media just sitting on the ground, or maybe they're propped up on a shelf somewhere, or maybe a giant, what do you call it, like a museum type thing? I have no idea, but that's another story for another day. My question to you, Stuart, is, have there been any specifically special memories for you from being at conventions or book signings, whether you're there as a vendor or there as an attendee?
Well, I'm always there as a vendor. I've been an attendee to like one convention. I never even really knew about them when I was young, and only discovered them as a writer. Special moments, tons of them. I just had one recently. It was last year. Where was I? I was in Columbus, Ohio. It was near the end of the year. It was in December, GalaxyCon, Columbus, Ohio. And we're setting up for the day. We'd already been doing it for a day or two. And so they usually let us vendors in. This GalaxyCon is one of these massive, huge things. Like 30,000 people were there, big movie stars and all that kind of stuff. And myself and some other authors will chip in together, and we'll buy a vendor booth in the middle of everything. and sell books all day. And it's a lot of fun. And they let us usually onto the floor about a half hour before they open the doors. So we come in and there's just people wrapped around the building. It's a lot of fun. And this one particular morning, one of the guests of honor was Weird Al Yankovic. And I've been to these things so many times, and I don't have the time or the money or the inclination to get signatures or anything like that. I can't be away from my table long enough to be in line for these things. And but I usually walk around and just say, oh, there's there's William Shatner 20 feet away. That's neat. But Weird Al was there getting ready because he was going to be the first person for people to sign that morning. And he was letting people come say hi to him from the vendors thing. So I went up and I was like one of the last. I found out about it right before they were just about to open the doors. So I went up in there, like, can I see Weird Al? And they're like, sure. And they had like a partition booth off for him to be in. And I walked in and there he is. And I mean, I spent like 30 seconds with him, just said hi and all that. And we fist bumped, and real nice guy. And he knows how to deliver exactly what you want from that, kind of interaction. It's not like we're going to have some big meaningful moment together. He's just going to say hi and be a gentleman and make me laugh. And I thanked him for all the joy and that he's brought into my life. And that was it. But it was really neat. And I don't usually get all, starstruck or anything like that, or from the people I've met over the years. But that one was, I don't know. It's the most recent, so that's what's on my mind. But it's also one that just kind of, he's just a very down to earth guy. So it's cool.
That's cool. So he's not just weird; he's actually a nice dude. So that's good to know. Acres of Movies goes on to say, I like Stuart's idea about the Where's Waldo on the IMAX screen. The writer's idea. He seems sharp. Yeah, Stuart Jaffe is a sharp guy. He's doing some great things, at least in my professional opinion. And then she kind of says, what are your favorite aspects of conventions? Is it meeting the fans? Is it signing the books? Anything stand out to you about that one?
Oh, all of that. The whole so for me, it's a weird experience because like I get to go be a mini celebrity for a weekend. I'm just, and then I come back and it's back to taking care of the trash and cleaning the house and crap like that. And I don't mean it. So it is a bit of an ego boost, but it's an ego boost that you have to understand as a writer. You're pretty much, I'm in my office. I'm here working, and I'm here in my head. We as writers, we get very little connection to the people who are enjoying our work. If you leave reviews or you write us, that's how we know the most of it. So when but even there, we're still interpreting the written word of what you're saying. And when I'm in a convention and somebody comes up and is like so excited, they want my picture, they want to meet me because I've affected their lives with whether it just be entertainment, or I've had people tell me that some book really helped them through a tough time or whatever. That's really both. It's touching. It makes me feel like that what I produce is some value and is worth something. And then I leave a convention and I'm charged and ready to get back to work and write something because I have those people that I met in mind. Oh yeah, there are real people out there who actually do care, that are waiting for the next Max Porter book or waiting for whatever crazy thing I'm going to come up with next. And so that's very exciting for me.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Once again, we are here with Stuart Jaffe on this episode of FreeWheeling Fridays. Don't forget to like and share this to everyone you know. If you have any questions for Stuart, let us know in the comments. If you're joining us live on the replay, thank you so much for doing that. Let's see here. Acres of Movies says, will you attend Monster Palooza or Son of Monster Palooza or the great state of Texas Frightmare this year?
Unfortunately, no. GalaxyCon used to have one in Texas, and we were looking at, myself and the authors I do GalaxyCon with, were looking at it, and it's Texas is just far enough away that we can't do it in one like we'd have to stop at a hotel overnight and then continue to drive to get there. So doing that to get there and then on the way back means 2 extra nights, and we're running on very thin margins. So in order to make these things financially make any sense is really difficult. And unfortunately, going up and down the coast here is not difficult. Columbus, Ohio was like 7 or 8 hours, so that was not bad, and we were able to do that. But I'd love to get further out. I just can't afford. I just can't make the numbers work yet. I'm actually looking at doing. I've never really explored doing a Patreon before, but when I was at Coastal Magic just this past weekend, I was talking with some other authors who were doing that very successfully, and one of them was saying that they use the money they raise from that so that they can go see fans. So the fans essentially are helping support the author being able to travel further and further. Because if my convention expenses are paid for through, say, Patreon, then it doesn't matter how many books I sell. I can just fly out there, bring what I bring, and that would be that. And because I'm not losing money. They're paying for me to come see them, and that's what they want. I'd be happy to do that. So we'll see. But at this point, at least I can tell you for 2026, we're in 2025, that the Texas stuff is not going to happen, unfortunately.
One can only hope for next time. You never know. They go on to say, I will listen to your books on audiobook and also read them as soon as I possibly can.
Oh, so thank you. Thank you.
There you go. Getting support from all corners here. Another thing is, once again, this is Freewheeling Fridays. Don't forget to like and share this to all of your closest friends. Is reading on it, whether it's the audiobooks or reading it, through physical media with a physical book in your hand, or you want to support some other great creators out there. Here's one that might be just a little bit off the beaten path, but hey, it's unique storytelling in every way, shape, or form. Take a look.
Welcome to Based on a True Story, Volume 6, Tales of the Underworld, where true crime collides with the furry, funny, and fierce world of the Dust Bunny Mafia. This brand new 32-page comic reimagines real mafia legends, Mad Dog Cole, John Gotti, and more, through the eyes of our animal mobsters. Think The Godfather meets Looney Tunes, packed with action, humor, and full-color storytelling.
I'm going to make one offer I can't refuse. Yeah.
I want to read that.
You do want to read that? Well, there you go. See?
When I was in high school, I had a class in the Mafia, the whole history of the Mafia.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a fascinating subject to me.
No, I understand. I can understand that. What did you I know this is probably a silly question, but I'll ask it anyway. What do you like more, Godfather or Scarface?
Oh, Godfather. Mm-hmm. By far better movie. Scarface is not that great a movie. It's not a bad movie, but it's not a great movie, but it's kind of become a cult great movie just because gangsters loved it. They seem to not get the message at the end of the movie. The point of the whole movie, they seem to miss that part. It always cracks me up when everyone loves to go say hello to my little friend, and I'm like, you remember what happens like less than 5 minutes after that moment? It ain't good. And then there's the original Scarface, the black and white one. Fascinating as well. But The Godfather is a really top-notch film. Usually in the top 10 lists.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone brought this up earlier today during class. AFI, the American Film Institute, has the lists, top 100 greatest movies of all time. And she raffled off the first 5 movies, and I think Godfather was at number 3 or 4, something like that. It was very high up there. So, words of Marlon Brando, make you an offer you can't refuse.
I assume Citizen Kane is first still.
Which one?
Citizen Kane is.
Yeah, I think that was first. Yeah, I think and I'm like, I don't get it. The movie's fine, but it's not the GOAT. Okay, I can give you 10 movies that are way better than that.
It's I think so. It's less about the movie itself in terms of the story and everything.
Right.
I mean, that is part of it, but it's the innovation. You look at it, and it could have been made visually. It could have been made a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But all those angles and different things they were doing had never been done before. It was all new, and so it was nobody really. It really changed the way movies were made, and I think that's part of why it will forever be up there.
Yeah. All right. Rosebud. Anyway, there was a sled named Rosebud. Acres Movies has another interesting question. Have you read the noir novel A Bullet for Cinderella? I'd like to see a movie about that one. After Dark, My Sweet, and The Grifters make for good movies, and that one may as well. Does that ring any bells?
A Bullet for Cinderella sounds familiar, but I've not read it. The Grifters is a great movie. That's a fun movie. I don't know After Dark, My Sweet.
After Dark, My Sweet. Yeah, this is all, Acres of Movies. You're bringing up a lot of titles here that, for me anyway, don't ring any bells. But hey, I don't mind learning new things every day. That's the beauty of life, right, Stuart? We get to learn something new every day.
I'm guessing. I thought I'd seen a lot of movies, but not. Apparently, I haven't seen acres of them. I've only seen, a few hundred feet.
That's right. Yeah, see, we're giving you some credit here, Acres of Movies. She says, in that one, POWs talk about buried treasure, thinking they are about to die, and then when the war ends, they all emerge at a POW. Brothers Ranch to find buried treasure. Interesting. I was not aware of this, or I wasn't aware of it until now. That's just my 2 cents. For sure. Interesting stuff. Well, I do want to if I can word this correctly, because my words are being a little slippery. Do want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Stuart Jaffe for being our guest on this episode of FreeWheeling Fridays. Stuart, thanks for being here. It was great to see you. Great to know you a little bit better, and got the banner behind you. So hey, it's called marketing, guys. Great marketing, glowy eyes, and the stuff you're putting together, I think, is great. I wish you nothing. We all wish you nothing but success moving into the future. And the stuff you're doing right now, what is it? It's the stuff that dreams are made of. So there you go. There's your Sam Spade right there. I think The Maltese Falcon is one of the greatest movies of all time, and Bogey is the man. It's one of my favorite movies. It's solid stuff, man. I saw The Maltese Falcon in a theater. I saw it in a theater when they re-released it. When they re-released it, because they were doing classic series at my local theater. Saw it for the first time. I was mesmerized throughout the entirety of the film. I think it's like only an hour, 40 minutes long. It's real short and to the point. Fantastic. Sidney Greenstreet's in it, right? You got Peter Lorre in it.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good book, too.
Oh, okay. I haven't read the book, so I can't comment on that part of it, but the movie is just so good. It's like chef's kiss. So, Stuart Jaffe, thank you for being with us. Now, if someone wants to know more about you or purchase copies of your books, where can they follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything that's going on?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. I have a website that is very creatively titled stuartjaffe.com. You can go there. You can, if you sign up for my website, you'll get some free stories, a free book or two, I think, and then you'll know when I have a new thing out. I have a Facebook page. I have a Facebook fan page, which is just my name. So the Facebook fan page is Stuart Jaffe's Madhouse. And if you look up Stuart Jaffe or Stuart Jaffe author, you'll find me. I have a Blue Sky account, but I was never big into Twitter, so the whole Blue Sky thing is just feels like Twitter, so I haven't quite fallen in love with that yet. And hopefully, if the Patreon thing works out, I'll have that going on, and that'll have a lot of fiction and stuff, as well as different ways, video and stuff like that. I've got a lot of plans. We'll see. Yeah, you can. My stuff is available everywhere online: Amazon, Apple, Kobo, Barnes and Noble, and lots of little places as well. So wherever you want to get it, I'm sure you can get it. It's all in ebook, paperback. Almost all of it is in hardcover now, and almost all of it is in audio. So I try to make it easy for you to get.
Fantastic stuff. Last minute question came in from Acres of Movies. They say, do you get inspired to write different stories based on the different places that you visit?
Yeah, well, so like we were talking earlier, all the Max Porter stuff is based on North Carolina history. So it's where I live, and I can actually go to the places and check them out. I have another series that's called the Nathan Case series. It's kind of a action thriller fantasy. It's kind of, I would say it's John Wick with immortality, and he's kind of a globe hopper. So there, a lot of the stories are based on places that I have visited that I always liked, and want to explore more. So that's definitely helped. The Parallel Society, the bookstore, and the main home base of it all takes place in a fictitious town that is very similar in Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. I went to college at Westchester University, which is just outside of Philly. And this is a fictitious town that's like all the little towns that are around there that I've known for a long, long time. So yeah, it not all books, but a lot of them do get inspired by places I've been.
Fantastic stuff. Well, thank you so much, kind sir, for being with us. I'm going to talk to you here again momentarily, so stick around. Feel free to grab some free food and drinks in the backstage area of our non-existent physical studio in the green room. It's free. So we have great caterers back there and all that kind of jazz. You know what I'm talking about, Stuart. But my name is Ryan of Van I Quote Channel. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5 personally. You can also check us out on all forms of social media simply at And I Quote Channel, which you can see below my name here. I do shows every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. EST. Freewheeling Fridays takes place on Fridays at 11 p.m. EST, excuse me. And then the And I Quote, the flagship show where I get to interview indie creators on Saturdays, 12 p.m. EST, is And I Quote specifically. So check out all the great content I have for you available. It's all free. You can find it on Facebook. We are on YouTube and Twitch and all kinds of social media outlets. So at And I Quote Channel. So check us out there. Do not forget to check us out again on Friday, 11 p.m. EST for Freewheeling Fridays. Yeah, because it is the cream that rises to the top. It's the cream of the crop, man. It just is. If you want to know more about the Madness Entertainment Group and some of the great pieces of programming they have available to you and some of the great hosts, producers, and some of the wonderful pieces of content they put out, we have this for you. In the meantime, like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. And remember, life is better when supporting indie creators from all over the world.
On the tube and feel the vibe. Every show you crave right here live. Heroes and villains clash in the night. Madness Comic Network sets it right. Scroll through the list, find what you need. Epic battles and fast-paced speed. From capes to cosmic space delight. Tune in and watch your favorites ignite. On Facebook, share the thrill so grand. On X, the buzz across the land. Madness Comic Network all around. In every episode, joy is found. Uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends. Catch every twist and every turn. Madness Comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness Comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness Comic sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe. Catch the wave and ride the tide. Join the fun, join the craze. Madness Comic brightens days. Hey! New uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends. Catch every twist and every turn. Madness Comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness Comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness Comic sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe. Catch